Hello everyone, today we've put on a wee miniature Clydesdale show for you. Here is Jed and Elvis, and you might have noticed they're all dressed up. They look really handsome today. Look how white their feathers are. We learned about that the other day. And they're all done up with their manes and pleats and everything. So that is what we have to do when we go to a show. And then the horses get judged, and the judge we will have them walking up and down, but we won't do that today. And the judge will come and he'll look at this horse and be like, oh yeah, look at this big wide shoulders, yeah, he's a big strong boy. Oh, look at that big massive muscle there, yeah, I like the look of him. He's got a big strong mane and neck, and down at the legs, oh, he's got big tough knees and big strong ankles, nice feathers. Oh, and at the back here, these bits that look like back to front knees, that's called the hocks, and the judge wants to see them really close together. So, oh yeah, he's a great horse, that's Elvis. And then the judge will go over to Jedediah, and this is Eva showing Jedediah today. And well, he's a pretty nice looking horse, but he just kind of looks that wee bit more skinny. His muscle's a big muscle, but not as big. And he's got kind of skinny legs, but really nice feathers. He's a good looking boy. And today he's got his hocks together as well. So he's doing really well in this competition. But because of the size of Elvis compared to Jed, I'm going to give Jed the second place. There you go, Jed. I'm going to give Elvis the first place. And people watching the show would probably think, yeah, that one looked like it was going to win because he looks so good. And it does remind me of a story in the Bible. So there's a story in the Bible, you probably recognise it when I start telling it. It's about Samuel, and he was to go and choose the new king after King Saul. There had to be a new king, and Samuel was to go and find the king. So he went to a man called Jesse, and Jesse had lots of sons, and he said, well, you better present your sons to me, and one of them has to be the new king. So he brought out his oldest son, and he was a big strong boy, big muscles, and Samuel was looking at him and thinking, oh yes, he'd be great, he looks like a king, oh he looks like he'd probably be strong in battle as well, so yeah, that's a good choice, God. But God said, no, it's not him. Oh, okay, so they brought out the next oldest son, and he looked pretty strong, fortunately, so that was okay, and looked quite like he'd be good in battle. And God said, no, it's not him. And then a third son. By this time Samuel was a bit surprised, but he looked at the third son. No, it's not him. Fourth son, fifth son. I think he looked at 7 sons, and God just kept saying, no, not him. And Samuel had to say to Jesse, well, is that all your sons? Because God didn't pick any of them. And he said, well, I've got my youngest son, but he's just a wee lad, and he's in the fields looking after the sheep. And Samuel said, well, yes, I will have a look at him because God hasn't shown me the right one yet. So in came David, and he was red-faced, he'd been outside all day, and he was maybe a wee bit wiry and so on. And God said, that's him, that's the one to be king. And Samuel had to learn, God actually taught him this lesson, that man looks on the outward appearance, so it's pretty obvious just by looking who you think is the best or the strongest, but God looks at the heart. And God knew that David had a heart for God, and David had a heart that wanted to serve God, so he was the right choice. And maybe it does sound a wee bit worrying if you think, well, I'm a really nice person and I'm funny and everybody looks at me and thinks I'm great, but if God looks at my heart, then he knows what I'm really like, and you might know when I've got unkind thoughts, and especially if I'm not really in a good mood and things like that. So I'm not sure if I want God to know my heart and what I'm really like. But there's another verse in the Bible, and it was actually David, King David, the young boy that became king. He wrote this verse, and it's in Psalm 139. And it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So asking God to look into your heart is actually a good thing, because God can help you to have the right heart. He can help you to get rid of the wicked things in your heart, and He can help you to have a heart that loves God and that can serve God. And with all this story, obviously you saw the big boys, and maybe you'll get to go to a Clydesdale show one day and you might see 5 horses or 6, and there'll be a big line of them, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a strong horse, I bet you that one wins. And you might be right, you might pick the winner, and the judge might pick the winner. But remember that God looks on the heart.